Welcome to Keystone Cold Cases, a podcast that aims to reignite cold cases across Pennsylvania. We are here to bring attention to the stories that have faded into the background, honoring the victims and their families along the way. Each episode is a step closer to understanding the truth, because every case deserves more than just a passing glance, and every voice deserves to be heard.
Hey, it's Chelsea.
Hi, it's Carrie.
Hi, it's Lindsay. And today we're going to be talking about the disappearance of Mary Ann Verdecchia. So on the morning of June 7th, 1962, 10-year-old Mary Ann Verdecchia went about her usual routine in the Bloomfield neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She lived with her aunt and several of her cousins. She was described as bright, well-liked, and a responsible child. So Mary Ann was known for her very sweet nature. She would run errands for a neighbor, often walking to the store and back without any issues. Local residents reported seeing her on her walk, and she was described as being in a good spirit, showing no signs of distress. Her family, familiar with her schedule and personality, saw nothing unusual. However, that afternoon, everything had changed.
I just have to say, I think it's crazy as a 10-year-old that she was, doing errands. And I know it's like a time change because that was so long ago, but I struggle to let my 13-year-old run errands. Like, we have a store like 2 blocks away, and I'm like, and he's 13.
Right.
Right. Totally different times back then, for sure.
Yeah, and it was super common for her to just go, and it was like a neighborhood over. It wasn't even her next door neighbor.
That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Mary Ann attended school at the Immaculate Conception. It was her last day of school, so the day was shortened. She went home to change out of her uniform. Then she proceeded to visit her old neighbor, that she often ran errands for. So this was about 4 p.m. Mary Ann was last seen walking near her home in North Fairmount Street. By 6 p.m., her family grew concerned. They began searching for her, but at that point, it was already too late. Despite initial efforts by family members and neighbors to search the area, there was no sign of her. They ended up reporting her missing to the Pittsburgh police at 10:30 p.m., and then the official investigation was launched. So for weeks, law enforcement, local volunteers, the community worked tirelessly to locate Mary Ann, but there was no clues. There was nothing. They did find a piece of jewelry that belonged to Mary Ann in front of the Highland Park Zoo, but after continued searching, there was no further signs that were able to connect the jewelry to actually her disappearance. The initial investigation was pretty extensive. The authorities questioned local residents, searching nearby parks, abandoned buildings, bus stations. Possibility of foul play was considered early on, but there was no evidence to confirm that theory. Theories of what happened to Anne started to surface, but the leads remained few, and there was not a lot to go on. So there was another lead that came in 1991, nearly 30 years later, when a witness claimed to have seen a local minister near the location where Mary Ann was last seen. Though the tip was intriguing, there was never really a full investigation, so the lead was dismissed.
I find it crazy.
Hang on a second. 30 years went past before anything, any action on the case whatsoever.
Yeah,
That's
so there was
wild.
They had some theories bouncing around, and I have that a little bit later, but there was not. That was the most substantiated potential, and it was 30 years later.
Well, I think
Yikes.
It's crazy that they said that there was a possibility of foul play, and even though there was no evidence, clearly a child doesn't disappear and have the capability to stay hidden away. So after a certain amount of time, you would think that would be the only possibility, right?
Right.
You would think.
And gosh, she's only 10. It's not like she was even a teenager.
Right. Yeah, so as the years went by, the case grew colder. Theories surrounding her disappearance had multiplied. Possibility of abduction remained a prevailing theory, though the lack of evidence, there was no trace of a suspect. There was nothing to support that theory. So some suggested that Mary Ann might have ran away, but there was also no indication that would have happened. She didn't have any personal reasons to do that. Despite the passage of time, the impact of her disappearance was still felt deeply in her family, friends, and the Bloomfield community. So over the decades, the Verdecchia family remained hopeful and continued to advocate for answers. Their efforts, along with the case's inclusion in various missing persons databases, kept Mary Ann's case alive in the public eye. But despite their ongoing commitment to the search, there was no significant evidence to be uncovered. The investigation still remains open, but the likelihood of finding answers continues to diminish as the years go on. There's also been numerous false leads and tips that came in over the years that complicated the investigation. So witnesses claimed to have seen a girl resembling Mary Ann in different locations, both in Pennsylvania and in other states, but none of these sightings were ever truly confirmed. Despite these distractions, the case persisted, and the question of what happened to Mary Ann remained unanswered. So as we examine the suspects and theories that have emerged throughout the years, it's clear that while some leads seem promising, none provided a definitive answer to solve the case. So here are some of the theories. So the theory of the minister. A witness came forward claiming to have seen a local minister near Fairmount Street around the time of Mary Ann was last seen. This was the witness that came forward in 1991. He was 9 years old at the time of the disappearance when he would have seen this, and he believes that he saw the minister inappropriate touching a young girl and murdering her. However, that lead was never fully investigated by law enforcement, and the theory was dismissed.
That's kind of crazy that they didn't investigate that. That seems like a pretty intense incrimination.
It does.
That man.
And it would make sense that, like, maybe a 9-year-old wouldn't come forward until years later, because that's traumatizing.
Right. I was thinking that too. So if he waited 30 years to say that, I mean, that must have been a really big, impactful thing that happened to him, that he would remember that.
Yeah. And there wasn't a lot of information on that. That was pretty much the blurb that all resources had stated. There was not a lot of extra information. So then there was other theories of stranger abduction. So the possibility of an abduction by a stranger was another theory that gained a lot of traction over the years. But given the lack of any signs that Mary Ann ran away or had any conflicts in her personal life, many speculated that she was abducted. However, there were no confirmed sightings of an unknown vehicle or any physical evidence to support this theory. No ransom demands were made, which is often a key element in stranger abduction cases, and it just made the theory difficult to substantiate. So then they also had theories that it was somebody that knew her. So another theory suggested that someone Mary Ann knew, perhaps a family friend, neighbor, or even acquaintance from her errands, may have been involved in her disappearance. But given the tight-knit nature of the Bloomfield community, some believe she might have been approached by someone she trusted. However, there was no evidence connecting any specific person to her disappearance, and this theory remains largely speculative.
I have heard statistics that typically the people or victims, it's usually by someone that you know versus someone that you don't know. It's more likely to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of crazy.
Absolutely.
It is.
Right.
And the thing is, like, I feel like communities can totally be close-knit, but you don't know what people have hidden behind their doors, because in your private life to your public life, I'm sure there are a lot of things that are very different.
Very true.
So they also speculated that there was potentially family involvement. There was no evidence to this either, but there was theories that have emerged suggesting the possible domestic issues or personal struggles within her family. She did live with her aunt, so she was not with her parents. They had abandoned her after they had gotten divorced. So they were initially suspects, but they were quickly removed from the suspect list when no evidence suggested that they were involved. They have been largely dismissed due to their full cooperation with authorities and ongoing efforts to find their daughter. But the family's continued advocacy for the case further weakens the likelihood of their involvement. And then other unsubstantiated leads. Over the years, there have been additional tips and sightings that were never substantiated. Witnesses reported seeing a girl resembling Mary Ann in various parts of Pennsylvania, but none of those reports led to a breakthrough. Additionally, some individuals came forward claiming connections to other missing persons cases, but none of these tips were confirmed either. So as of 2025, the case remains open with the Pittsburgh Police Bureau. They're still actively seeking new leads or information. Despite occasional media attention and new tips trickling in, the case continues to grow colder. The mystery of what happened to Mary Ann Verdecchia remains one of Pittsburgh's most haunting unsolved cases. Both her family and the community continue to hold on to hope that one day they will finally receive answers they have been seeking for over 6 decades. So they are asking if you have any information regarding the disappearance of Mary Ann Verdecchia that you are contact the Pittsburgh Police Bureau. And that is all of the information on Mary Ann Verdecchia's disappearance.
Hey, it's Chelsea.
Hey guys, it's Carrie.
Hi, it's Shannon. Today's case is taking us back to Pittsburgh. This is a short case. We are going to be doing a double episode. So you're going to have one case and then this case, and double your fun, double your pleasure, all that stuff. On June 20th, 2016, authorities from Allegheny County's Department of Children, Youth, and Families, CYF is how we'll refer to this throughout the case, they arrived at Patricia Fowler's home on Bryant Street in Pittsburgh with a court order to remove all children from the residence. Fowler was under investigation for medical neglect. 4 of her children, all with serious health concerns, had missed over 70 medical appointments. So that day, 4 children were removed from the home. However, by July... I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just don't understand how it could get to that high of missed appointments.
Right. Even if you're like scheduling all these kids in the same day, you're still, just even say, let's say there's 4 appointments a day. You're still missing almost 20 days worth of appointments.
That's crazy.
But it gets worse. However, by July 6th, CYF officials realized something wasn't right. There was supposed to be 6 children in the home. Missing were 17-year-old twins, Ivon and Inisha Fowler. Now, we're talking about 17-year-olds here, so there's any number of reasons that they may not have been in the home at the time. Like maybe they were out with friends, maybe they had jobs, maybe they just didn't want to be there. And it's worth noting that Patricia had a total of 9 children, like altogether. So, right. So with 6 supposedly under the jurisdiction of CYF, we can assume that she had 3 older children that had likely aged out of the system. So back to the twins. They were born October 23rd, 1998, and hadn't been seen by extended family since around 2002 or 2003 when they were still toddlers. 2 former landlords who rented to Patricia between 2006 and 2015 stated that the twins had never lived with her during that time. Officially, their disappearance is listed as September 11th, 2006. That means when CYF arrived in 2016, Ivon and Inisha had already been missing for nearly a decade.
That is absolutely wild. I just don't understand.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, it's just mind-blowing that 2 kids can just be, I don't want to say forgotten about, but
Just unaccounted for.
right. I guess when
For
you
so
have
long.
total of 9,
Well,
you're going to lose track.
it kind of just shows you how there are cracks in our systems
For sure.
to keep track. And we hear it in a lot of different cases for various different things, maybe abuse and other things, but there is a huge gap where cases fall between for a myriad of reasons, and it's just really sad.
Yes.
Right. You know, if no one's complaining, no one's saying anything, you know, this kind of flew under the radar kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no news is good news type thing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that these people, these social workers, they're overworked and underpaid and too many cases. Their caseloads are just ridiculous. You just feel for them. And they just can't always get to everything. They're like, okay, well, you know, nothing to see here. We're moving on.
Right. That's a tough job. That's a tough job.
Mm-hmm.
So Patricia Fowler was questioned repeatedly about the twins' whereabouts, but her explanations were all over the place. She'd claim they were with friends or relatives in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. At one point, she told authorities that she had sold them to a woman named Barbara for $2,000 each, but she quickly backtracked after being reminded that selling a child is a felony. But none of these accounts, that she had given were ever verified.
I just want to talk about something. This kind of reminds me of the Lori Vallow and Chad, I think it's Daybell case with the two children that went missing. Because once there were alarms that I guess extended family had not seen those children, police did not hesitate. And that was over different state lines.
Right.
This is like in the same state. And the only thing that I can think is because maybe they were not white, which is an atrocity, because these were younger children and there should have been people there to protect them. And it almost just seems like they weren't worth that time or that effort. Like, for things to really not be verified with like infants or I guess toddlers whereabouts blows my mind.
Yeah. So in an interview with Pittsburgh's WTAE, Patricia gave yet another version. A family friend named Cheryl Willis had taken the twins to North Carolina and then to Georgia when they were around 13. But notably, she never mentioned this person to investigators. And she later claimed confusion Patricia later claimed confusion due to a learning disability, but still insisted, quote, "I didn't sell my kids and they're not missing," end quote. So this
I wonder if she was ever tested to see what her IQ was, or to see if she did have an actual learning disability.
Yeah, I didn't see anything to that effect. So who knows? I mean, it's within the realm of possibility, absolutely. Or is it a convenient excuse?
Right.
And this whole "I gave them to this person" gives me, like vibes from the Kaylee Anthony's case where, what's her name? Casey was like, "Oh, she's with Zanny the nanny." And, who? She's throwing out this random name of somebody that didn't even know her anyway and had nothing to do with her or the kid. Vague geography, no proof, just throwing stuff out there while she was, partying like it's 1999.
Yeah. I mean, your story should always remain consistent. If you're telling the truth, it's not going to change.
Right.
So, there's obviously something being covered up if she keeps changing her story. Disability or not disability, you don't forget what you do with your children.
Exactly. In August of 2016, Patricia Fowler was charged with endangering the welfare of children, obstruction of a child welfare investigation, and concealing the whereabouts of her missing twins. That same month, her then 18-year-old son, Datwon Fowler, Datwon. I'm just going to say Datwon because it's a little bit easier to pronounce it that way. I'm sorry if it's wrong. Datwon was charged with intimidation related to a child abuse investigation, criminal conspiracy, obstruction, and providing false ID. So one of the things that he had been doing was impersonating his missing brother, Ivon, by sending texts and Facebook messages to law enforcement, claiming that both of the twins were alive and living in Atlanta. And then when he was found out, he admitted that he just wanted the investigation to stop. He just wanted his family to be left alone. And this kind of goes to, I think this lends to protection of the mother, I guess. So, if that, does that make sense? Like he's his making loyalty. This up. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But misplaced as it may be, it's, it's his parents, it's his mother. So,
yep.
In December of 2016, cadaver dogs were brought in to search for evidence of the twins' fate, but nothing was found. And great piece of information here. In May of 2017, a judge threw out most of the charges against Patricia, leaving only one of unsworn falsification in relation to misleading statements to the police. So this woman's just getting away with stuff, and she's going to get a slap on the wrist for misleading statements.
Right.
And this is weird. This is the second case that I've had recently where somebody's getting away with, all of these heinous crimes because, you can't even prove it, or you just look at the person and be like, nah, he's not a threat or she's not a threat. One officer that was involved in the investigation testified that he believed the twins were dead, and he was citing Daytwan's account that Ivon had gone to bed sick and was gone by morning. And this was like years prior. And that Inisha later disappeared under similar circumstances, but in a different home than the one that Ivon went missing. So we know Patricia kind of bounced around a bit.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if maybe it is true. Maybe she was abusing them in different ways, because abuse isn't always physical. Maybe she was abusing them like with food, and maybe they were sick. Maybe they were being neglected. Maybe their diapers weren't changing.
Right.
We've seen, I don't know if it's on our podcast, but like just news stories of children dying because their diapers filled with feces, and then there's maggots, and then like from all the malnutrition, or like X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Maybe they did die, and maybe it wasn't her like intentions, but to like cover it up, they just kind of went away.
Right.
But either way, she should still be held accountable.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. And let's also take into consideration that Daytwan he's a little bit older than the twins, not much. So depending upon when all of this stuff went down with the twins, he was close to their age. So he's just, he's just saying, oh, he's sick. He's, he might not, if they were toddlers, he'd have no idea that, if she was causing it, that he wouldn't be able to decipher that. He wouldn't know what was wrong with him, just that he was sick and then he was gone. And, and same with Inisha.
Yeah, you believe anything
I just
that
want to
your
know.
mom says. So, the mom's like, oh, they're just sick or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there has had to be another adult. Like, did she just have 9 kids and not have another, like, person in the house that wasn't a minor at all? Like, that's a lot of kids for one person. And who's working?
Right.
Like,
there's
got to be questions. She's not going to stay in her house constantly. I don't know. There just had to have been signs that maybe were overlooked.
Yes. So the judge ruled there was insufficient evidence to prove that she harmed the twins or actively hid them from their father, Daytwan Lyons. So I believe that at the very least, the twins and their brother Daytwan were the children of Daytwan Lyons. As for the rest of the kids, I don't know. I don't know if they were all his. It's hard to say because there was just not a lot of information because these kids are just missing and nobody knew they were missing for years and years. So it's kind of like just this is all that there is and we're just not really finding out anything additional. So, Patricia did end up pleading guilty to endangering the welfare of a child, unsworn falsification, and public assistance false statements in July of 2017. She was sentenced to 4 years probation because she was still receiving public assistance for the twins. So she had to pay that back, and that was $57,000. So
but I doubt they're ever going to see that money.
Yeah.
Where's she going to get that from?
Yeah, Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know much about the system, like the public assistance, especially at the level that she was getting it. I'm assuming because so many of the kids had health problems.
Right.
But like, is it possible that they could withhold benefits for the other kids until that restitution is made? I don't know if or it's just like, we're not getting this money back, but
I don't think they can legally withhold from the other children.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either. It was just something that came into my mind when I was just
right.
I wonder
thinking about that.
I wonder about her taxes, though, since it's government agency. Could they withhold her taxes for that?
Probably. I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Or garnish any wages. I mean, not that I don't know if she had a job or whatever, but
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me tell you something that blows my mind, talking about like garnishing. So my first like real professional job, I was an account manager, and it was for like long-term care, and basically caregivers would send in their hours. And I worked there for a couple years, and there was this one woman, and her pay would get garnished, and we would get in trouble if we gave her more than what they said. And for her state, they said that her livable wage was X amount. Anything else, even if it was overtime, holiday pay, was gone. And the entire time I worked at that place, she was getting wages out, and I always wanted to know what she did, because I mean, thousands. Right. Wow. Like every paycheck was going back to the government.
Crazy. Maybe tax evasion, I don't know.
It was wild.
Wow.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Well, in exchange for her plea, the charges against Datewan were dropped. So we see why she's pleading guilty, to kind of get him off the hook. So
sure.
I guess that's cool. I don't know. Adding to the horror of this story, Ivon had suffered severe third-degree burns over nearly half of his body when he was just 2 years old. And this happened on November 8th of 2000. I think of a 2-year-old and how tiny they are. And this just makes my blood curdle.
Mm-hmm.
So Patricia waited an entire day before seeking medical help for this child. And he was in the hospital for over a month. She claimed an older sibling had accidentally scalded him in the bath.
So, when you think about burns, I was listening to another podcast, and I think they talk about burns differently than they used to. But that level of burning, like his nerve endings are like gone.
Right.
So maybe he didn't feel it, but I'm sure his body was reacting
Absolutely.
to all that
Right.
damage. But
sure.
That's like my only like silver lining, is maybe his brain couldn't comprehend the pain because the nerves were gone.
Right.
Yeah, but third-degree burns, especially on a darker ethnicity, they're absolutely going to show.
Right.
I mean, his skin was probably peeling off.
Yeah. And then you run the risk of infection, and they need there's so much care involved in burns that, hopefully he did not have the pain, but there was still the wounds, I guess, from those burns. But it just gives me the heebies. So I mentioned that she claimed an older sibling had accidentally scalded him in the bath. And at first I was assuming Datewan, but he was only like a year or so older. So that didn't make sense to me. But the more I researched, they had a couple other older siblings as well. So there was 9 kids in total. So the twins and the 4 younger than them that were supposed to be removed from the home. And then, Datewan and 2 olders. I think there was an older sister.
So when you think of like a bath, you're not thinking that water's hot enough to scald somebody. but on your actual water heater, there is a meter to change your temperature ranges. Yes. And when I had moved into a house that was like a rent to own, and I guess like it got bumped, and it was such hot water. I burnt myself, and I mean, if I would have stayed in and was incapable of getting myself out, yes, I could have easily had burns. Yep. But as a responsible parent, I changed those settings for me and my child. So you probably could assume that she knew that the water could get that hot. And who would ask their kid to give their other kid a bath? It just, especially that young, blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've taken many a hot shower, especially like when I have a migraine. I will just go sit in the shower and let the hot water just like pour on my back. And there's been times where I come out with like, and my skin is bright red. And then it's, and then it's so irritated that I have to put lotion on and stuff. So it's just, and that's just me as an adult who really likes hot showers, and like this whole thing is just horrific.
Yeah, I think I often forget how hot it gets because it was one of the first things we did when we moved into our house was to turn the thermostat on our hot water heater down, and we never turned it back up again. So our water gets hot, but it never gets scalding hot. Yeah. But I've gone to other houses and go wash my hands and turn the hot, like full hot, and it's like, whoa, I'm just like so not used to that because our hot does not get that hot.
Yeah. So like I said, I didn't think it was Daytwan. I honestly, in my opinion, I don't believe any of the kids did it. I believe it was her, and she was just blaming it on them.
Yeah, she probably left them in the tub or something.
Or maybe, it could have been as simple as maybe she was running a bath and put the water on too hot and he ventured in himself. I don't know, but
true. With 9 kids, you can lose track. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that she waited an entire day before taking him to get medical attention, I don't feel very good about.
No, maybe
giving
she was
her the
worried
benefit
she was
of the
going to get in
doubt.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't all about the child. It was about like she was worried that she was going to get in trouble.
Right.
Another thing that I think is maybe she was hoping that he could get through it without any incidents, but I'm sure he cried incontrollably.
Right.
Insolable. That she probably went for something similar to that.
Yeah. Authorities briefly removed the twins from her care, but they were returned just days later. CYF failed to notify the police, and future interventions focused mostly on school attendance, not safety.
Yikes.
Right.
You see, a slip in the crack. Exactly what I said.
Yep. There's also no record that either twin ever attended school, and no relatives that were interviewed by police had seen them in years. And then 2 of the siblings told investigators that first one twin, then the other simply disappeared one day. And that kind of aligns to what Daytwan had said. Like, he was gone and then, she disappeared, later.
Right.
A social worker reported possibly seeing one of them in 2006, but later admitted that the child lacked the distinctive scarring that Ivon would have had. So that was basically chalked up to not being him. As the last known update on the Charlie Project's website, both Patricia and Daytwan still maintain that the twins are alive. So reporters did track down her mother. She's been gone from public view since 2018. But reporters tracked down her mother and spoke to her. She said she hadn't seen Patricia or the twins in years and hadn't seen the twins since they were infants. But was just, hoping, and praying for their safety wherever they were, or if they were still alive. The case remains open. Anyone with information regarding the disappearance of Ivon and Inisha Fowler should contact Penn Hills Police Department at 412-798-2011. So again, like the case is open, but it just feels like, these kids are forgotten. They were definitely failed by their family. They were failed by the system. Like all these people that were, supposed to be protecting them really just did not. And I do have a quote that I'll leave you with from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And this kind of just captures the tragedy of this case. And it says, quote, "Even the memories of Ivon and Inisha are few and faded. Their father recalls the boy as a baby in his arms, eyes wide open in the middle of the night. The girl is a petite and pretty toddler. Their paternal grandmother remembers them as cute. An older brother and an older sister remember them simply as gone one day." So we'll have some pictures, like there's mostly pictures of the homes and stuff. Patricia, like in court. The only picture we have of these twins is their infant picture, and they're precious.
But it's so. I was just gonna say, but they're so cute. Oh,
I know. Oh my gosh, I know. I just want to take them in.
You just want to scoop them up and hug them.
But, yeah, like so cute. How could you ever think about it? Like I just don't know. And my opinion of the situation, it's just really weird that there was 3, then the twins, and then 4 other kids. What about these twins? They are smack dab in the middle of her.
In the middle, right?
Yeah. Like what about the twins? Like what was it that everybody else is, alive or accounted for, and these 2 are not? Yep.
The only thing I could think is, were the others twins? Or was this the only twin birth? Because having twins is not easy at all. And sometimes, maybe she was just frustrated. Maybe she was really struggling with it. I mean, postpartum depression is a huge thing, and not every pregnancy you have it, you don't have it. Maybe, she resented them, and we see it a lot. Some parents will pick a sibling or 2 and literally direct this hate and animosity, and so do the siblings. It's like they turn on each other, and it's weird. But I mean, maybe it's something like that.
Yeah, it's giving do you know the case of Dave Pelzer, a child called It?
Yes. Yes, I was just going to bring that up. Those books were horrifying. I was crying reading them.
Yeah, me too. I literally read that in a weekend. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Why? Why him?
Yeah.
She targeted just him. So it does happen.
And it was like a switch flipped. It was just like a switch flipped, and all of a sudden he was just this inconvenience and this object of hatred. It's awful.
Yeah. Awful.
I don't think about that case. I think about the Gabriel Hernandez case, especially because it also had a lot of cracks fall. I mean, a lot of things fall through the cracks on his case. And it was so bad that even the CYF people, I believe from California, they were tried for his death, for a part in his death. Yes, they knew about things. The teacher was constantly calling. They kind of moved stuff around.
I remember this.
I mean, it was a whole entire thing, and that's what this case makes me feel like. There was clearly abuse. It was seen, and it still got swept under.
Yeah, people knew.
Yep. Well, that wraps this case up. Again, Penn Hills Police Department, if you have any information, I honestly don't know that we would ever see a resolution for this at this time. It was so unknown for so long that it's just kind of out there as, what? Oh, I don't know. Where do you even begin to look? So, but
never say never, because people do confess on deathbed.
Yep.
Deathbed confessions. You never know.
Yep. Yeah. That's true. We can, only hope somebody eventually, comes clean and gives these kids justice. But thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me, ladies, and hope everybody has a great evening.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
That's all we have for this episode of the Keystone Cold Cases podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please consider leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to find out more about the podcast, the hosts, and the cases we cover, or if you want to suggest a case, please visit us at kccpod.com or send us an email at keystonecoldcases@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Keystone Cold Cases and on Instagram and TikTok at KCCPod. Follow us on YouTube at Keystone Cold Cases. Please remember never to reach out to the family or friends of the victims, only to law enforcement if you have any tips. This episode was researched and hosted by me, Shannon. Find all of our sources, social info, and contact information at KCC Pod. Theme music by Darren Makins and production assistance from Shannon Bickle. Join us again next week for another case to sleuth out.